Hello, this is Dan Pro. Welcome back to my vehicle rigging tutorial series. We're in part 6, and now we are ready for duplicating the all the hard work that we did for this front wheel to the back wheels, and then symmetrize it to the other side. So something I like to do before I ever duplicate everything is to, of course, make sure that everything is named right and working correctly, and double and triple check everything, make sure everything's moving the way it should and rotating the way it should. Double check our transform locks on our control bones and things of that nature. One thing that can help, and I always want to make sure that as much work is done before I duplicate as possible. And one thing that can help our rig is to add custom shapes to our different control bones. So the way everything currently is right now, it's just a bunch of octahedral bones, and it really doesn't tell an animator how to use this rig or what they shouldn't touch. So through the magic of television here, I can actually turn on our shapes. You'll notice that I've already went ahead and applied those custom shapes to our control bones. So we've got our drift control here, steering, we have our main location and rotation for our body, and this big arrow is our root bone here. Then we also have control bone for our wheel and our wheel height. So it's important to do that before we duplicate as well, so those control shapes will also be duplicated, especially for these wheel bones over here, for the wheel and the wheel height. So that can help. Another thing we can do is, what I want to do here is just take all of these custom bones here, the ones that the animator is actually going to use, and I'm just going to hide them. So what will be left are all the mechanism bones, everything that we have named a mechanism bone here. And I've been really good about setting the transform locks on the control bones themselves, but there are a lot of bones in here, these mechanism bones, that I haven't set these locks on, and you can actually break the rig if you don't, if you allow an animator to get a hold of these things. So I want to make sure that all of these are locked, and I can do this actually in one shot here. I'm just going to select the steering length and lock everything here, just drag my mouse all the way down it, and I want to select everything and then reselect this to make it the active object. And with the copy attributes add-on, if you it comes standard with Blender, you just need to go to user preferences and enable it in add-ons. There's a menu with Shift C that you get where you can copy the protected transforms to all the other bones. So with this steering length selected, I can copy all of these locks all the way across. So like I mentioned before, it's not needed for an animator to go in there and touch any of these bones, and it can actually ruin the rig, and now they can't grab a hold of those. So another thing we can do is select all of those MCH bones and move them to a separate layer, just to get them on a different layer on our armature. So with M, I can move these to the second layer, and we enable both layers, do Alt H to get our control bones back here, and now we can just hide all of those mechanism bones. Everything's going to work for the animator. It's all going to be happening behind the scenes. This is far easier to look at than all of those octahedral bones. So that's something we want to do before we duplicate everything. And another thing with these MCH bones here, I haven't been using this, it's not happenstance that I'm using this MCH prefix. If I select everything, all these bones, and type I to insert a whole character set of keyframes, what I want you to notice is we only have the keyframes for our control bones. At MCH, actually, the whole character key set will ignore everything with MCH, and there's actually a couple other prefixes that will work. DEF for deformation bones, MCH for mechanism bones, and also the ORG bones, and that's more relevant for Rigify, but that is also a plus of using this MCH prefix on those bones. So I actually don't need this armature action here, but I just wanted to show you that it would, when you're using the whole character key set, it will actually not key anything with the MCH prefix, and that's also how the pose library will work. So we're not going to use the pose library for this, but if you're using this for a character, all of your mechanism bones for your character rigs will work the same way. And if you set a pose in the pose library, if we go to that and add a new pose library, it will not set keys on your MCH, DEF, or ORG bones. So just be aware that that is what's going to happen. That is what your pose library uses for a for a key set is the whole character key set. Alright, so now that we have that set, I'm actually going to turn off our bone shapes again here. Make sure all of our bones are unhidden. Go to edit mode and make sure they're all unhidden there as well. So I'm ready to duplicate everything that makes up this front section and repurpose it back here for our back wheel here. So there's a few bones that are actually going to be needed to be changed. Our MCH hub bone here for our steering. We don't need to steer our back wheels, and we also don't need a steering length, but we can repurpose our steering length bone with their target for the drive shaft. So that's what we'll do there, and then we'll just eliminate our MCH hub that allows us to steer. So let's go to edit mode, make sure everything's selected, and then deselected, so we can make sure we're only box selecting all of the bones that make up this front portion of the wheel here. I think I've got everything there. Don't have anything extra. Make sure we don't have that steering bone there. And another thing about duplication, the reason I've been using this, not been adding .l to everything, is because when I duplicate everything, because I've been using that simple naming convention of .001, .002, and it's been auto naming that. When I duplicate everything, it's going to continue that to .003, 4, 5, and etc. on all those bones. And if you didn't do that, if you named everything .l now, it would actually be .l.001 on the duplicates. So this is actually going to save us time using that naming convention now that we're going to duplicate everything. So I'm going to do Shift D, duplicate, G, Y, and I'm going to drag all of our bones back here. Let me get back, try to line these up even with our wheel here. That looks good about right there. I'm going to take a good look on the side view here, try to line that up, and that should be good. Luckily everything is symmetrical on this back wheel, so that's going to save us a lot of time. So let's go back to pose mode here and check out to make sure that everything is working correctly. So if we move our wheel height, it's going to move all of these bones, and now we need to repurpose our bones for the drive shaft instead of the steering, and we can also get rid of our hub bone here. So I'm actually going to select this in edit mode and delete it, and that shouldn't cause a problem as long as I didn't have anything else selected. Alright, X delete. So now we don't have to have that. We're actually going to parent our hub piece, both the pin, if you remember that piece back here, and also the hub to our strut.004, and that's what I was talking about before. It's going to sequentially keep numbering these duplicates here. So let's set up our steering here, or rename our steering. I'm going to just delete our IK constraint temporarily here. I'm going to select our shaft bone, or the shaft mesh, Shift S, cursor to selected, and then I want to move our MCH steering length, and let's just rename this to, call it drive link .001, Shift S, oops, Shift S, selection to cursor, and then I'll put it over there. We need to reposition our steer link target .002, we'll call it MCH drive targ.001, and I misnamed that, so we'll fix that real quick. And now we just need to reposition it, and we'll reposition in this cavity here. This one's a little bit easier to get at, I believe. Make sure that I have all of this selected. Shift S, cursor to selected, get back out of wireframe, Shift S, selection to cursor, and it's going to keep the same parenting, which was the body bone here, so that's going to work well for us. We do need to reparent this one to our strut.004, Control P, and it already is. It must have been parented, it just reparented it automatically when we deleted our hub there. And let's just snap this point, Shift S, selection to cursor, all the way to our new point in that cavity, and then we can select the whole bone and just resize it a little bit. Let's re-add our constraint. I'm going to select the target, Shift select the bone, and this time I'll, instead of doing the IK constraint, I'll just use the damp track, because that's going to work pretty much the same way as our when we set that up for where did we do that? We use that for our pistons. So that's just another option. You can use a similar constraint to do the same thing. Let's take a look, make sure everything is moving correctly. Now all we need to do is parent our meshes to the correct bones here. So do this upper swing arm to this one, Control P, bone. We need our piston, upper piston to this one, Control P, bone. We need to select our spring bone, shift select our spring, tab into edit mode, select all of our vertices, Control H. We're going to hook these to a selected bone, so we should have that working. So we got these parts, and I believe we got our put our drive shaft to our drive shaft link, and we need our tire to our wheel. Let me just hide this tire just so it's out of our way, and then we can parent this to this bone right here, this shaft or strut.004, and we can also get this pin here if we can get it selected through all these bones, and then also parent it to that same bone because we don't need to steer this one. Alt H to unhide everything, check to make sure that we've got everything moving correctly. Looks like all of our parts are going. Let's just grab the root bone and make sure nothing's being left behind there, and there we go. We have already duplicated our back wheel. Now the left and the right side over here, remember when you're looking at your character or whatever you're, this is always the left side or just the right side of your screen if it's facing you, and this is the right side, which is the left side of your screen. So make sure that everything is zeroed out here, and then I want to go back to edit mode, A to select everything, and then deselect everything. And what I want to do is select everything on this left side. So I'm going to auto name everything with a very cool feature here. So double check, make sure I've got everything ready to go. So we go to our armature panel over here, and first what we're going to do is we're going to auto name left and right. So now is the time where we're going to add that, append that .L to everything. So when I do that, notice every one of these bones has been renamed with .L as the for the suffix, not the suffix. It's been appended to it. So another thing we can do is we can actually, instead of just doing wheel height, let's call this front wheel height .L. So that is a control bone here, and we will do front wheel dot, and we don't need the .001 for this anymore. So that is the only right and left controls on the front, is the height and also the front wheel. And let's do the same for the back. We will name this rear wheel dot L and rear wheel height dot L. And now we can duplicate all of this stuff to the right side. So with those naming changes done, we can select everything again. Once again, I'm going to just box select everything on this left side, make sure that I've just got the parts for the front and rear tires here. It doesn't look like I have anything else selected, and now with one single button push we can go to our armature, symmetrize, and we're going to get everything for our right side with a single click, which is pretty freaking cool. So it's going to save us a lot of time, and all of our transform locks are done, all of our bone shapes are still there. So if we go to bone shapes, now one thing that is going to be a little bit odd is our bone shape for our left side here isn't going to work for our right, but that's actually not a problem because I've actually went through and made a right side bone, or a right side wheel shape for that. So I can just change that over to put that circle on the outside instead. Alright, there we go. Now next up, we just need to parent all of our meshes. Now I'm not actually going to go through that because I've already shown that process many times, so I will do that in my own time, and I'm ready to see you in the next tutorial where we're going to add our follow path constraints and the drivers for our wheels. So pretty exciting stuff. Till next time, good luck.